Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. But if you stick around, you might just figure out how to get yourself out of some really sticky situations. Alright, our first story today comes to us from baronessindecisive. Vote with my feet? Don't mind if I do. Let's jump right in. In my old role, compliance for a financial institution, we used to be split into two groups, investigations and alerts. Alerts did the first level of processing of items that came in and then determined whether they should be escalated for further review, sent to investigations, or closed out. Alerts was expected to get through 8 to 15-ish items per day, depending on referral channel and other factors, while investigations was lucky in some areas to get through 2 per day. Some cases could take days or weeks to do. I worked in investigations, specifically within Treasury, which was considered the most complex area, and I primarily dealt with the high scrutiny, high complexity items like law enforcement referrals. I was also the main trainer for Treasury, particularly complex cases, and had created all of the training materials and processes. Additionally, I worked as the point of contact representative on the procedures management group, so I knew them inside and out. What it boils down to is that I made myself the keystone species of the department, albeit inadvertently. As happens with any organization, there was an ebb and flow of employees in our area, but for the most part we stuck around because we were treated fairly, enjoyed our work, and had senior leadership who actually tried to understand what we did and why we do it. We weren't dealing with people who thought they knew better and who would make arbitrary decisions for the sake of implementing change and saying that they did something. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but it worked pretty well. That all changed when they decided to merge alerts and investigations together and make everyone do everything. Things went downhill quite quickly, especially because the leadership that was given control was from alerts. As far as they were concerned, a case is a case is a case. It's not. And you should be able to get through all things quickly. You can't. And they're all created equally. They aren't. They put undue pressure on folks to get through the caseload far faster than was feasible, if you do it right anyway, and removed all specialization, which made it incredibly difficult to get into the groove of the work because different areas had different expectations and procedures. To add to that, they promoted people who had no business being elevated, Peter Principle anyone? And ignored tenured investigators who should have been first up. All that did was piss off the good employees and create a whole bunch of post-turtles in leadership roles. As one would expect, attrition skyrocketed. They weren't paying us nearly enough to deal with the BS, so people left for both internal and external roles at alarming rates. When the pandemic hit, we were, for the most part, stuck. Hiring freezes galore, and there's always a fear of leaving and then getting screwed and being jobless during the disaster that was and is the world. A bit more background, at work I have always had a reputation for honesty and for speaking my mind, sometimes to the chagrin of senior leadership. As far as I'm concerned, you can't complain about something if you don't try to fix it. So when everything was at peak awfulness, I said something on a call with the aforementioned senior leadership, knowing that it was unlikely anything was going to change, but at least I would know I tried. I was later pinged by one of the managing directors in our overarching department, not up my direct reporting line, but in the same organization. We'll call him C. I worked with C a number of times over the years. He had a rocket strapped to his butt and was perfectly content to ride that puppy until he could go no further. He is definitely a bit of a yes man, but that's what generally happens when you're in that type of role. I am unlikely to ever become a yes woman because it's not my personality, but it takes all kinds, and you never know what might happen in the future. When C pinged me, he asked if I could chat and give him some more details about the situation. I knew I had nothing to lose. See Keystone Species. So we got on a call and I explained the problems and my opinions on proposed solutions. More staffing, revert back to specialization in case types, pay industry standard, have leadership work on acquiring a better understanding of the job so as to be able to make more informed decisions, etc. Nothing unreasonable, though I knew that it was unlikely any of it would be done. C's response, vote with your feet. About what I expected, but I was impressed that he went right out and said it, especially because we both knew the whole department would be screwed if I left. I'm sure he figured I would never leave. After all, I had stayed for almost 8 years already, even though the awfulness didn't truly start until fairly late in the game. Fast forward a couple months to summer 2021, I had been focusing on finding another role. I had been even before talking with C, but that gave me renewed incentive. I was being particular about what I applied for because I didn't want to leave for the sake of leaving, especially knowing that any internal move would mean I was stuck for a year and didn't want to risk screwing myself out of something perfect by jumping the gun. My caution paid off, and I was offered an amazing internal opportunity that pretty much fit me like a glove. I kept my move quiet for a variety of reasons, only telling my manager, but I knew it would eventually make it up the chain. I just wanted to keep it as quiet as possible for as long as possible. Well, a week or so before I was scheduled to start in my new role, I got a ping from C asking me to hop on a call. He had seen the leave report and wanted to ask me why I was going and whether they could convince me to stay. They couldn't. I got on the call, video, and when he asked me why I was leaving, I looked at him and said, "Well, C, I'm just doing what you told me to do." He gave me a Cocker Spaniel look, complete with head tilt, and I just smiled and said, "I'm voting with my feet." The satisfaction I got from the look on his face when he made that connection brought me so much joy. He was so crestfallen. It was just chef's kiss. Now, OP didn't add an edit onto the story itself, but fortunately when I was digging through the comments on this one, I found an update from OP. It says, "For those asking, the department has imploded since I danced my way out. They have lost all but one of their original people. One of them I may have poached for my new department, and the one left is only staying because he needs the flexibility in his schedule that he was able to put into place before things got super horrible. Permitted because it was for childcare. He goes in, does precisely his job, and leaves, and even he is actively looking. So they're going to lose him sooner rather than later because even with the flexibility, he knows it really isn't worth it." My old manager was finally able to escape too. Senior leadership in that department has a reputation for blocking internal moves unless someone with more pull manages to push it through. So it took a long time before he was able to get away from it. The powers that be don't seem to understand that blocking you from leaving isn't going to force you to stay. It's going to make you go external and they'd lose you entirely, rather than just to a different area. But when the next consent order hits, they'll wish they had made other choices, I imagine, and I will play a tiny, tiny violin for them. And I did make sure that C and his boss were among those who received my best of luck to everyone. It's been swell, I'm off on a new adventure email, complete with new title, which they refused to give me in my old group. OP, thank you so much for this comment where you wrapped up a little bit more of what was going on. We don't get that on nearly enough of these stories. Now, this boss telling you that you should vote with your feet, I'm guessing they thought you wouldn't. They must have thought that saying that would shut down what you were thinking and that you'd be staying in that job forever like a good little worker bee. But I guess they don't understand that there are many other jobs out there that you could be doing, and well, you just tried to better yourself. It's not your fault if management doesn't have a contingency plan when you're the only one who knows how to do things in your department and you decide to leave. That's completely not on you, that's on management. Our next story today comes to us from Ilookbetterthanyou. You want me to work at full capacity? No problem. Can you tell my colleagues to say goodbye to their bonuses? Thanks. Let's jump right in. I work in a help desk call center as a first-line agent on purpose. My job is easy. We work from home where users can call, email, chat us, and we fix their most basic computer problems, often resolved by a restart or redeployment of some sort. I took this job on purpose to get away from a very stressful career that killed my social life, and frankly, my will to live. This job cost me exactly zero energy, giving me the space and energy to have the social life I've always dreamed of. The pay in this job is based on the languages you provide help in, and because of my language skills and a promotion I'm not allowed to tell my colleagues about, I make more than anyone else in my team. For this simple reason, I refuse to take any promotions that bring more stress but are not financially compensated, causing me to have worked in first line for 3.5 years now, while most of my colleagues have had promotions. Because this company has a huge turnover, I often get new colleagues and managers. I usually train the new colleagues and have a friendly, cordial relationship with the managers, but I always try to stay private and reserved as much as possible to save all my energy for after-work activities. Most days I don't talk to anyone. I log in, I work on the tickets, calls, emails for 50% of the time, while studying, reading, watching movies, or listening to music the rest of the time. What's important to know for this story is that we can get a bonus of up to 10% of our monthly income depending on our productivity. I always get the 10%, but for some newer colleagues it's difficult because the limits are pretty high. If I like a colleague, I will sometimes help them by closing tickets in their name. I also usually take the more challenging tickets and leave the easier ones for the newer team members. Further bit of information is that the company I work for has their help desk for 12 languages. So to cover all the languages, we have a team of 8. So now to the malicious compliance. One of the people I trained became the new team leader, which I actually encouraged. The guy is exactly the manager type and understands the job. Unfortunately, the pressure from the operations manager got to him and he started checking our stats, noticing that for about 4 hours per day, there is no activity from me. I explained to him that this is on purpose to give everyone a chance to get their bonus and that my output is still higher than anyone else in the team. He also noticed that I sometimes close tickets in my colleagues' names, for which I couldn't give him the real reason cause it's sort of fraud. I just told him I rush sometimes and just don't notice. He told me no more relaxing times and no more closing tickets in others' names. He actually said he would be checking up on me to make sure I work the full 8 hours I'm paid for. I explained to him that this was a very bad idea, that the team is doing really well and the current status quo is perfectly balanced and he shouldn't upset it. But he was young and reckless. Fine. For the next 2 months, I worked at full capacity, where normally there was a good balance of closing tickets and everyone getting a fair shot at their bonus. Now, all of a sudden, I did about 70% of the work, leaving very little for my colleagues who, except for one other, both months didn't qualify for their bonuses, causing huge conflicts in the team. I tried to stay out of it but was soon accused of stealing all my colleagues' tickets and not giving them a chance to earn their bonuses. I replied professionally to all the accusations via email, making sure to CC all relevant managers, including the operations manager. After the 2 months, our new team leader was reassigned and the status quo returned as it was. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Iced Maggot. Ew. Being a manager when there is a well-oiled team without any performance issues already in place is literally the easiest job in the whole world. You do nothing. Upsetting that balance is literally the worst thing you can do. Another user called Nighthawk something responded to this one and said, "You talk to people and say, tell me what you need from me to make sure that you keep doing your job the way you've been doing it. That's it." Yeah, unfortunately this doesn't happen a lot, especially when it's a new manager coming in who wants to make all the right moves, that's definitely in quotations, to impress their higher-ups because they're the new manager and they know what's best. It takes a really special kind of person to look at everything that's going on and say, wow, this is actually working really well, and all I need to do here is keep the machine oiled so that it keeps doing what it's doing. I can sit back and let the team do what it does, which is work very well together. This next story comes to us from MEHC011. Cost of $40 per month is too expensive for the accounts team. Let's jump right in. My work involves analyzing all kinds of data. This instance occurred around the time when our company was somewhat new, but still large enough to have 150 employees and rapidly growing. So far, our data analysis had been retail companies, travel agencies, or even the housing market. For the first time, we received a request to analyze health data from 5 hospitals in our area. The health data is very sensitive, so the raw data itself and the analytical result could not be shared via email or Dropbox. For the first time, my team gets to see that sensitive companies go through channels that have a lot of security to share the data between us and the client. These channels cost money, but nothing too expensive which our organization couldn't afford, something like $40 per month. 4 out of the 5 hospitals have this data sharing channel, which meant that my team was able to receive the raw data and also be able to provide the analysis via the same channel. The 5th hospital was new and they did not have this channel. Either our company or the 5th hospital needed to have this channel. So I raise a request with the accounts team to purchase this channel and it is denied. Myself and my manager both raise it again and also discuss it with the accounts supervisor, and it is approved verbally, but declined on the system once again after 2 weeks. We try again for the 3rd time after discussing with the higher accounts manager and still no approval at the end to buy this channel. It is declined, and we have been told it is the hospital's responsibility to share the data. And if we reach the hospital, they ask us to reach the health ministry, which then asks us to get in touch with a local member of parliament, etc. So just a lot of bureaucracy that I shouldn't be managing. While this entire request of data sharing is being worked on, the time for us to receive and analyze this data is running out. We are waiting only on a single hospital's data, which is ready to be sent to us, but only via an appropriate channel. So I've had enough. I find out from the health ministry email response while working on getting the hospital to buy the data sharing system that the data can also be shared practically. Specifically, if I was to take a USB with me to get the data physically at the hospital and also return the output to the hospital the same way, this practical data sharing capability is deemed entirely safe. And that's what I started to do. Every Monday, I drive 30 minutes to the hospital at 11 a.m., go to their admin team to retrieve the data in my USB, and then drive back to my work, reaching at 1 p.m. Then I go have lunch at 1 p.m. I repeat this same task again with our analytical output on Thursday. Our contract is to analyze the health data for the whole year. After doing this for 3 weeks, one of the upper management people, whose office is opposite my desk, starts to think that I've been taking a very long time for lunch, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. He comes to my desk and asks if everything is okay and why I was away from my desk for 4 hours. I tell him the whole story. He is not happy at all. The cost of that data sharing system is nothing compared to the cost of paying my salary while I physically collect the data every single time. He puts the accounts team into their place by finding out that they approve of this system verbally each time and then deny it every time after a few weeks. And literally that day, we have this system all purchased and then installed overnight. Although I do miss the bi-weekly travel while listening to music to only do a copy paste of files into and out of a USB drive. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called P0D0. It says, "I'm still stuck on the part where the secure alternative is letting you show up and plug up your own USB into the hospital computer." OP responded to this one and said, "The USB stick belongs to the hospital. Because of the work we needed to do, they allowed a single person from our team to use the USB stick. I had to provide appropriate ID and sign their document to use the USB and return it once I no longer need it. And the USB return part was hilarious because they have set days once every few months where all external people who have hospital items but no longer need them must physically show up to return. We confirm that we are returning the item by signing another document. Items like medical equipment is sent to the cleaning room, and the USB stick which I returned was broken with a hammer." I'm still kinda stuck on that one myself, regardless of what their procedures were after they got the USB sticks back. I mean, once OP leaves there with that USB stick, they're responsible for all that data. That's a huge burden on OP, especially if they happen to lose that USB for any reason. Could you imagine? I'm really surprised the hospital let that data leave on something mobile like that. But let's get back to the part where they smash it with a hammer, because you might be surprised how hard it is to destroy electronic devices. On a USB stick, that information is stored on a very little silicon chip, and you need to destroy that chip completely, like burning it, incinerating it, whatever, but a hammer will not do that. Some of that data will still be recoverable, and I'm amazed that using a hammer is their solution at a brand new hospital. That is dumb. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.